Hi, our guests today are Town Engineer Mike Dean and Highway Surveyor Scott Crisafulli, and you guys are going to talk about the marvelous world of stormwater management.
You really want to?
Well, I think what people need to know is, and don't make me say what MS4 stands for, but the let's say municipal separate
Storm,
storm
sewer
systems.
system, MS4.
MS4 permits from the EPA are finally getting going, and most people probably know it is take phosphorus out of the Charles River.
Not everybody knows that.
Okay.
That is the gist of it, yes.
Well, I think you guys gave a nice presentation at the special town meeting in October that showed this is going to cost the town about $40 million over the next 20 years. So we figured it was worthwhile trying to explain in layman's terms. I mean, basically we're dealing with the rainwater that comes out of the sky and goes into the road drains and eventually winds up in the rivers and oceans, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I can now write stormwater for dummies.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually the second round we're working on now. 'Cause
Okay.
We've been dealing with it for, I think, over 11 years now.
Right.
It's more intense. It's going to cost a lot more money and a lot more for us to do. We'll continue on what we've been
Okay,
doing.
now what does the money go to? I know a lot of it's up front is planning and engineering, but then at some point you said like 5 years out you're going to start building things.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, so starting from day one, as you had mentioned, the first 5 years, where's the money gonna go? It's all going to planning, which is basically gonna be, heavily loaded on consultants,
Design-
testing, continue mapping, as Scotty's been handling the mapping for quite some time now. And when I say mapping, that's mapping of the existing drainage system. and all-
every single
and all the
street,
outfalls.
drain, and outfall in
Yeah,
the town.
and all the outfalls, correct.
And then you have to document when they were cleaned, when they were fixed.
Well, we're doing that now.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do that currently, which, we're under the phase one since
Okay.
2003. So it's not a new permit that's out there, but we've been participating in the phase one since 2003, or Scotty certainly has, well, the
Right.
town, when I say we.
But
we
the
say
basic
town.
gist of how it affects Milford is there's phosphorus in the Charles River, and every town along the Charles has to take some of it out, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
A predetermined amount. We have, how many pounds we have to use?
Yeah, so backing up to that is, we have the Charles, and the EPA has deemed that an impaired water. So once it's considered an impaired water,
Right.
not all water is impaired by phosphorus, it can be other
Okay.
contaminants, okay? So in this area for the Charles River, they've deemed it an impaired water with too much phosphorus.
And how
So-
does the phosphorus get there?
Well, it's naturally occurring. So what happens is the phosphorus is naturally occurring, through even grass, leaf litter, natural
Okay.
elements or natural items that are out there. So,
And eventually it winds
so what
up in the
happens is
water.
when the rain hits that and you have runoff,
It washes it down into the water.
right, so it's a function of impervious and development. So if you have developed areas, this water doesn't have the chance to infiltrate into the ground. So you have higher rates of runoff, generating more. In this case, we're concerned about phosphorus. So
Now-
they put getting back to the impaired water, they put what's called a TMDL, total maximum daily load, that they're gonna allow under this permit.
Okay, and you have to get it down to that level.
Yes, 41.2% over the next 20 years. We have to get credit for.
Okay, and how do you get rid of it?
Getting credit for the EPA and through stormwater design, they have all these models, just like they generated what they think is contributed from the town of Milford.
Now,
So-
an example of one of the type of things is the drainage system that you built with a state grant on the corner of Sumner and Dilla,
Correct.
where everybody asked for about a year, what's going on over there?
Yeah.
That's a natural drain that's gonna filter it out? Is that how you
Well-
explain that?
Well, that would be, as we have referred to the second portion of this, adhering to this permit is the actual construction and structural BMPs. BMP standing for Best Management Practices. So there are non-structural and structural BMPs.
Okay.
So what you see on the corner of Dilla Street and Sumner Street would be considered a structural BMP.
Okay.
So you can construct those in a manner to remove phosphorus, and you get certain credit for whatever type of BMP you're constructing.
Okay.
So
Now, how much does that remove? Do you have an idea how many?
yeah, that one we got credit for 16 pounds. On an annual basis now, 16 pounds
And how many
annual.
pounds annually do we have to remove?
Through the permit, it's a little over 900 pounds. The exact number is sitting over there, but it's over
So
900
you've got to
pounds.
build a lot more of those
Oh,
things around town.
Yeah, so that gives you the size and
Yeah,
magnitude
exactly,
of.
yes.
Wow.
That's a $350,000 project, probably permitting, construction, things of that nature.
Once that's built, there's a maintenance issue because it has to be maintained.
Has to be
In order
maintained.
for it to work correctly, it has to be maintained.
Now, I also heard, though, that some people objected to it because it has standing water, and in the summer it can become a
It does have
mosquito
very
breeding
little
ground.
standing water, it's not a lot. But it's still, the certain plant life have to be maintained in there, and certain,
Okay.
species cannot grow in there, it has to be stopped, and it's everything, it's just a huge maintenance issue, which
Where are you going to build these things, though? There's not a lot of
Right, so that,
open land.
yeah, so I mean, there's certainly challenges that we have to face is financially, and one of the challenges is gonna be, where are we gonna build these things?
You may have to build them on private property, so you may have to find private property to buy, or however we get it. Or in any town property that's open that we can use, that suits the conditions we need, obviously. It's gonna be a challenge, for sure.
Right, now I noticed when they were doing like the Stop and Shop Plaza over, I noticed it when they built the, where the Price Chopper is up in Hopkinton last year. It seems like they're spending, private property owners are spending a lot of time building underground structures. Is that part of this as well, on newer construction?
The underground drainage
Yeah, not
system.
necessarily for totally new development, because that would be adding impervious to the overall existing number that the.
Right, let's say the Stop and Shop Plaza
So
on.
the Stop and Shop is a good
On
example.
109,
Yep.
while they had that parking lot dug
Yes.
up, they went pretty far down. There were an awful lot of like
Yeah, so that,
plastic chambered structures they built. Is that part of this?
it's not part of it per se that the town regulated
Which part of it for
that.
them?
It will be part, I think that we'll be able to get credit for something like that, because it was an existing development where
Right.
they implemented modern BMPs, best management practices, this one being a structural one. And they, like you said, they placed a huge area underneath the pavement, and that will give credit for,
Yeah.
that will remove phosphorus.
Okay.
Now, it's gonna be, how do we take the private sector for any of those retrofits, not new development, retrofits, and get credit for that? And that'll be part of this 5-year plan. I could see, because I've been thinking about this, I can see we have to tally up all these retrofits. New development is different because you're actually adding the pavement, so
Right, but
it's tough to get credit for something that you're adding, but the retrofits are a perfect example.
right, so you're going to have to go and look at everything that's been rebuilt in the last so many years.
Yes,
Figure out what they put underground
and get as much credit for as we can.
and do it. So, for instance, Wendy's is putting in a new drainage system on the infamous Lake Wendy. You'll be able to count that.
Potentially, but there's some
Hopefully.
existing drainage underneath the ground there that's actually what isn't functioning properly, but a lot of
Okay.
people don't see it. So if you don't see it going in, most people just don't know it's there because it's under the ground.
Okay.
But
So
things of that, we're gonna have to track that.
Right. And now I guess the big question that comes up is, who pays for this? The taxpayer.
Ultimately,
You know, so it's either through property taxes or the so-called utility, stormwater utility.
right, there is grants available also, and obviously it'll be harder to get because everybody's gonna want them, every town needs to do the same thing.
Well, that's
so,
a question I wanted to ask.
you know.
This affects every town in the state, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the Charles River
All
towns
Massachusetts.
have their own issue, but every city and town in the state, in the country, is following some kind of rule like this now.
It's hit some part of the countries. I don't think it's hit all the country, or some parts of the country, but I don't think it's hit all the states yet. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I
Right.
know the northern states have, and out west has been hit.
And I know they hit the
But it's-
Chesapeake Bay area, down in
right,
Virginia,
Chesapeake Bay is
Maryland.
probably
New
the
Hampshire's going through
Right.
the same thing we're going. They were part of the
Yeah,
appeal
so
process.
it's not just Milford, it's
Right.
not just
But-
Massachusetts.
But it's not necessarily
nationwide.
phosphorus either.
Right, it's other issues.
They all have to adhere to the MS4 permit, which is, you need a
Whatever-
permit to discharge all your stormwater into the waterways.
Okay.
And then there's there's different levels after that. Do
And
you
this
have
all-
an impaired
yeah.
water? Do you have it, set with a TMDL, total maximum daily load? And what is that pollutant that they wanna cut down on?
Okay, and this all comes from the Federal Clean Waters Act,
Correct. Yep.
through the EPA,
Yes.
A long time ago.
a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe early 70s or
Early
something.
70s.
So the cuts going on at to the EPA right now under the Trump administration haven't knocked us out.
No, this one hasn't been touched yet.
I bet you wish it was.
Well, it would help.
Absolutely.
We all want clean water, but this is
I
a huge,
know.
huge
There's a lot of
expense.
work.
It's a huge expense.
Yeah.
It's a huge undertaking, and as a town, we have to do it all together. You just can't rely on me and Mike, and I've said that to the finance committee, and I should say that to the selectmen, that we can't do it ourselves. This is huge. This is bigger than us, so we need to have this town involved in it, whether it's, other departments, townspeople, whatever, boards. Everyone needs to be involved somewhat.
It sounds like a huge undertaking.
Oh, it is huge. It is, and we could give the whole thing to consultants and do everything, but the more we can do, the more money we can save, obviously,
Right.
but it's not that simple.
And then, as you said, then there's the maintenance issue.
Right, and that's where you start looking at, do you hire landscape companies, or maybe there'll be companies that do that for a living. Do you stop paying that, or do you hire employees to do it, just continually maintain? In the water testing, do we do that, or we hire consultants to do that? We do have some testing available at the sewer plant, but do we have all the testing we need? So there's all kinds of little things that.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna have to almost have your own science lab built.
Pretty much.
If
Well,
that's the
know.
the way we choose to go.
As selectmen hate to hear this, the finance committee hates to hear it, but that costs employees. You have to have employees to do this.
Yeah.
You absolutely do. It's almost like you need, at some point, we will have to have employees specifically working on stormwater. You have to. It's impossible for me and Mike to do this.
Yeah.
It would be impossible, so,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, is right.
So it's a very, I don't know, I know we joked before the show, it's kind of a dull subject, but it has a lot of impact financially
It does.
on things. And do you think the 400,000 that was appropriated this year got people's attention?
No.
Or is it going to be 5 years from now when you guys start going for millions every year?
I really don't. 400,000 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's really sunken in yet. And I think it has with the finance committee, because I've been drilling this for so long into their heads that this was coming. But I'm not sure if the public knows that. I don't know. I don't get a lot of questions. I never get calls from people, what's stormwater? Never. No one talks about it. No one knows anything.
Well, I think it's one of those things like a sanitary sewer. You flush your toilet, it goes away, you don't think about it.
Exactly.
Yep.
But now you're paying for it.
Right.
So you're not paying for this yet. And obviously we like to do our best not to, but I'm not sure if that's even
But it
doable.
could
I
be
don't
just
know.
like you get a sewer bill, someday you'll get a stormwater bill. Could be, not it is.
No, it could be. We don't know yet. So we don't know that.
Yeah, it depends on how the town decides to pay for
Right.
this.
Right. So it's
Wow.
huge. And the things we've been doing for the last year, like the last 12 years I've been in this position, street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, all the things that we do are all part of it. And that adds up to the $600,000 a year we're already spending. That just comes out of a budget because it's there already. It's been there. You know what I mean? Picking up leaves, hauling all that stuff away, and it's just, that's all part of it.
Yeah, but doesn't it increase things like, don't you have to sweep the streets twice or empty the catch
Yeah,
basins
we actually
twice?
started sweeping the streets twice way back, probably 10 years ago, because we knew that was coming, and it's the right thing to do. Some streets get swept, like Main Street, that's every week. Some of the in-town streets are more often. Low-lying areas get swept a lot after rainstorms, and we sweep probably more than twice.
Yeah, so Mike, in terms of like your workload, is this developing into almost 90% of what you've been doing lately?
No, it hasn't turned into 90%, no, not at this point, but
It could.
as this grows, it's gonna be a challenge to manage. Even if we're hiring consultants, you still have to manage them to some degree. You know, what are we spending our money on? Does it make sense? You have to have a handle on what's actually taking place. Just because you hire a consultant, it doesn't mean that you're not
Well, yeah, you have to
involved.
make sure they're doing the
And-
work, they're getting it done on time,
But more importantly,
the paperwork's getting filed.
yeah, but more importantly, we have to be involved to understand it, so we make the proper decisions for the town.
Right.
Not someone coming in and saying, this is the way it has to be because I'm a consultant and I'm an expert, you know. I have a lot of years of experience in drainage, so I know it, I know it pretty well. So, you know, we have to be involved, we have to make decisions that are prudent for the town. I don't think we necessarily want to be trendsetters. That's even come down from whether it be FinCom or the selectmen, I forget which
Yeah.
meeting. They're not saying not to do it, but we don't want to be trendsetters either.
I think the biggest concern is that we'll spend 10 million, 20 million, and then find out, oh, this didn't work.
Well, that has come up, but I mean,
Could
from-
happen.
You know, from an engineering standpoint and planning for it, I don't have the ability to say it's gonna go away in a while, so we're not gonna plan for it. I don't think it's prudent planning for the town anyways, but,
Right.
you know,
So-
and I don't, that's
so
not
does
the
it
way we're
mean-
going. but-
So does it mean if the town is doing a new project, you have to design this into it?
Oh, yeah.
And then at some point you have to retrofit the existing drainage things,
At some
Yes.
point.
for want of a
yes,
better
it will.
term. That's
Yep.
my engineering term
Yep.
thing.
And then even in the first 5-year plans, we're gonna be faced with implementing new zoning regulations, potentially new zoning regulations, new subdivision regulations, where you have to incorporate more low-impact LIDs, LIDs, low-impact development standards. And the town has already done some of that. I believe Scotty was involved with changing the cul-de-sac and
Yeah,
putting an
reducing
eye, you
road
know.
sizes.
Reducing
and
road sizes, but then
Reducing
you,
sidewalks.
I mean, they wanted to go to a certain width, and then the fire department waited and
Right.
said, no, wait a minute, we need to get our trucks
We
in
were
there."
talking 26 feet, and it was at 30 at the time, and we got it down to 28. It was
Yeah.
a happy medium.
Yeah.
But we've reduced the amount of sidewalks on one side of the road in a subdivision,
Yeah.
stuff like that. When we do roads over, we are narrowing them, we're trying to keep them consistent at 28 feet. Some of the roads we're rebuilding are 30 feet, we bring them down. We're doing less curbing, because curbing basically guides the water back down the drain. So if you can get it to run off into the grass, it helps. So all that stuff helps.
Okay,
It's small, very small, but it's something,
a pound at a time.
if that.
And the first 5 years, of the
Yeah.
planning stage, the EPA has, and that was one of their consolations, so to speak, through the pushback from when they originally came out in 2008 or whatever it was, or maybe even before that. They were going for everything, you know, private owners, you know, the towns, things
Yeah,
like-
because I remember going to all the protest meetings, you know, with Bellingham and Franklin and Milford joined together. It's got to be,
Yeah.
you know, feels like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago, sure.
And, you know, it was, the price tag at that point was 120 million.
Right.
And it involved everybody, and they were talking about, you know, the larger roof you had on your house.
Yes.
And the bigger amount of driveway you have.
Yeah, so some of the private sector stuff that they first came out with, stuff in
Yeah.
2008, some of that has gone away, but that doesn't mean that we don't include that or incorporate some of those. Now, I don't know exactly what they're gonna be, I don't wanna scare anybody, but, you know, this is gonna be a long process, even 5 years for planning. You know, it is a fairly good-sized town, so it, you know, 5 years, it sounds like a long time, but
No, it's not.
it's gonna be needed. And getting back to the 5-year plan, EPA has allowed us, if we adhere to their permit over the first 5 years, we get 15% of the 41.2% that we have to reduce.
You get a credit for it,
We get a credit for it.
just by
correct.
following the plan.
Yes.
That's not bad.
Whoa. I don't know. And then so what does that leave? 26% or something that we have to,
But that's kind of weird, because you get it for planning, but you haven't removed any yet.
no, but through the 5-year plan, and it's public outreach, education, best management practices that are not structural. That's training employees that work at facilities, you know, just better housekeeping, things of that nature. So through that process,
So
you
what-
will, you know, zero
Ultimately, right.
zero
may help.
phosphorus.
What can the average
Fertilizer.
person do to lower the amount of phosphorus?
So,
Other than-
don't use fertilizer phosphorus in it, that's number one.
The number
Okay.
Because
one.
that's huge.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think
huge.
you can buy fertilizer phosphorus in Massachusetts anymore. I think that was already passed.
I thought when John
Oh, I-
Fernandez was state rep, he got that taken out
Yes,
as part of this.
I think so. I don't know what the actual outcome was, I never really noticed. But that's one thing for sure. Don't put all your rain into your grass rather than in the street. People pipe all their water out to the street, which we don't want anyways, because it causes us problems. But if you can have your any water you have, really just downspout water, let them go into the grass. Don't let them go into the street. Don't don't try to get rid of the water.
And the
Keep it
grass
in
filters it, the grass and
Exactly.
soil in your lawn filter
But we have
out.
such a granite base under this town that it's hard to drain water here. That's
Well,
such a
I
huge
was
problem.
gonna bring
we
that
have.
up and say
Especially in this area, it's huge.
you've got, I'd say in most of Milford, at least a good part of it, you go down, a couple of feet and you're on bedrock.
Yeah, in some places, yeah. Or you're in really hard pan clay that just holds water on
Yeah.
top of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to filter the water into the ground.
That would, yep, and that's referred to as glacial tills and perched water tables, which makes for design very challenging.
Yes.
And the EPA doesn't take that into account, do they?
Not really, no.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
I would think they have the same problem in New Hampshire too. 'Cause that's pretty rocky up there. And you go out Midwest, there's no ledge, there's no rocks, and they filter everything to the ground nice and simple. Every place is different.
I would assume down the Cape it's pretty
Yeah,
simple.
same thing. But they're not worried about phosphorus down the Cape. It's what are they gonna pull out?
I'm not sure, but I would guess that with all the septics and everything like that, probably nitrogen.
Yeah.
But that's
they
a
don't
guess,
deal
I
with
don't.
phosphorus.
Well, it's kind of hard to grasp the magnitude of something because I'm trying to think of, you can't equate it to like building a woodland school.
Well, just think of it like, well, no, because that's one project. But take Woodland School and spread it out, maybe 50 projects in 15 years. That's huge. And the projects aren't small.
No.
I mean, you look at the corner of Diller and Sumner, that's probably average size, but they're going to be bigger than that, and they're going to be smaller than that.
Right, so you need somebody to
you're
design them,
talking-
somebody to build them,
Yeah.
then somebody to
Yeah,
maintain
right.
them.
The school, you had one designer, or maybe two designers
Right.
involved, and that was it. You're talking, everything's got to be designed separately, because it's a different situation.
So 10, 15, 20 years from now, you could see what you built on Dillon Sumner, you could see those all over town.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or you
Pretty
may
much.
not see some of them because they're underground.
Right.
Okay.
And then people will really be saying, where'd my money go?
Well, yeah, but just doing it on the ground even costs more than doing it above the ground.
Oh, no, I wanted you guys, it's hard to, it's a weird subject to talk about, as we were joking about that beforehand.
Yeah.
The best way to do it is have someone ask questions, because if someone asks questions, it's easier for us to answer so they can understand, because we're just trying to throw the information out there, and if we can grasp it, It's not, overall, it's just pulling phosphorus out of the water. It's as simple as that.
Right.
But the ways we have to do it, and all the different things we have to do to get that done, is where it gets complicated.
A lot of engineering, a lot of building, a lot of
Yes.
maintaining.
Anybody that's going to engineering should be going to engineering for stormwater, for sure, environmental. It's the way to go right now with all this.
So that they have a job for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh yeah, longer.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah. Even the management
'Cause
and the maintenance.
There'll be a
going-
time, I'm
going
sure,
forward.
someday that some of these systems, it'll be after me, I'm sure, but they'll have to be rebuilt. They'll have to be taken apart and done again, because they've done their job. It's time to make them work again.
So do they have a lifespan?
I don't know.
That's pretty hard to say. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen basins that receive hardly no maintenance. They're still functioning, and because there is a design, a safety factor, and just even the hydrology modeling. Like if you're saying X amount of cubic feet per second are getting in there from a model, maybe half of that amount is actually getting in there. But anyways, it's a hole in the ground, and it's collecting water just to.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
there's really no good way to get rid of water on the roads other than channeling it through drains and
Right.
piping it off somewhere. And
Yeah.
See, you can tell this is a boring subject.
yeah.
The producer fell asleep.
No, it looks like he fell out of the chair. but
But I mean, going forward and managing it, and that's another whole. Once you get through the 20 years, it's you know, making sure that all this money that was spent, everything's going to function properly, and that's another whole management and maintenance aspect of it. That's just continuing on. That's going to be very challenging.
Absolutely. You don't. First of all, you don't want to invest, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in a drainage wetland and not take care of it. You make it not
absolutely.
fail and not work anymore. So you have to maintain it. As simple as that.
Well, I'm just, yeah, it's even hard to come up with questions to ask you guys about this, because you're trying to get your hands on the fact that, you know, most people, if you're driving somewhere, you don't even look at the grate in the ground and realize the rainwater goes down there and it goes somewhere.
Correct.
You know, back in the day, everybody used to dump their oil down those drains. You know, and they
yeah.
still do, believe it or not. We still find
that's-
people doing it.
Like earlier, you asked, what can you do to you know,
Make sure you don't
you know
drop
what
the old.
what people can do, and those
Yeah.
are you know, best management practices even at your house. You know, even litter, pet owners. Then you have you have different audiences. You have residential, you have commercial, you have industrial, and then you even have town facilities. You know, with personnel there that, you know, I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but through education, you can just better housekeeping for all those different audience groups, and then that's how you obtain some credit through that whole
I would
process.
imagine this works as public outreach right now.
Yeah,
This works as public
absolutely.
outreach. This might be a credit.
This show will be a
Yeah,
credit
so we'll
for
do
you.
this like once a month. So we hit 900 pounds credit.
Then we'll give Kevin the credit.
I don't know if we want to do it once a month, twice a year, once a year, but I don't know.
This is definitely public outreach.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
So it counts.
Well, we got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything the average homeowner can do? Used to direct it to the lawn, not the street.
I mean, it's hard to say just for a regular homeowner because that's not a huge issue with them. You know, any place is a huge parking lot, impervious surface is just ridiculous, and that's for the water. Roads, so, you know, it's up to us.
The high school parking lot,
Yeah,
the
huge,
roads.
huge. Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, fertilizer, let your water run into the grass,
Yeah.
don't let it run down into the storm drains. You know, have a garden, have your water run into the garden.
Right.
Any way you can get that water to go into the ground rather than into the drain is the way to do it.
okay.
And over the years, a lot of people with sump pumps have bubblers in their front yards now, and the water's bubbling out, but it's not staying in the yard for the most part. That helps. I mean, that's groundwater, it's already clean for the most part,
Right.
but
Right. So
But like you had mentioned, less fertilizers in general, even zero phosphorus, but less fertilizers. Even
No.
even washing your vehicle in the driveway, you know,
make sure it
pay
goes,
attention. Yeah, make sure.
stays on your property, not goes into the road.
Correct. Yeah, and then waste. You know, pet waste is, you know, dispose of it properly.
yeah, we do still have pet waste in catch basins. We still
Yes.
find that, and
Yeah.
that throws us off, and
That's-
we have to be testing for that. And it's not necessarily, we're testing for illegal tie-ins to our drainage system from sewer system, so, you know, you put waste in a catch basin, kind of
It can
throws
be a
that.
false negative,
Well, that is a question I was going to ask. The water that comes out of the
and be
sewer
a false
plant,
positive.
Do you get credit for that because that's cleaned
The water comes out what?
out of the wastewater treatment plant, the sewer department's plant?
Yeah, I don't know what that
Is that
consists of.
stripped of phosphorus when it goes in
I
the
would
water?
think it would be, but.
Yeah, but I don't believe we're getting a whole lot of credit for
No.
that. That's a whole separate permit.